Ankin Ma'at, Ankin Ma'at. I'm sorry that we are actually running a little bit late. Our presentation, everything is just ran late today. I mean, technology is a challenge for us, as you should understand. We are trying to cook up a gourmet meal with things that are not befitting of a gourmet meal. We got a can of tuna, a match, and a Swiss Army knife. Anika is holding her head. She's like, "Why are you telling them that we have technological challenges? We do have technological challenges. I want you to understand that it takes a lot to perform this, to get this up and running. And sometimes it is a challenge. So, anyway, I am so pleased that you've come to actually be part of our bi-monthly gathering, our bi-weekly gathering, the Kemetic Ascension, brought to you by the Shrine of Ma'at. My name is Heru Jedin Ma'at Aten Ra, also known as Jabari Osaze, and I'm honored that you are here with us. I know that some of you are probably waiting for us to go live, so I'm truly honored that you have decided to spend your Sunday with us. So let me go ahead and ask you, as I do every Kemetic Ascension, to tell us how long you have been part of Kemetic Ascension and how long and where in the world you are. And where in the world you are. Where are you and how long have you been partaking in, how long you've been part of Kemetic Ascension? I'm hoping that we'll hear from you and that we'll get to reach you wherever in the world that you are. You all know the drill. If you are actually someone that has routinely been part of Kemetic Ascension, please let us know where in the world you are and how long you've been part of Kemetic Ascension. Do we have any answers yet?
Yes, well, we have Inspired One who just says peace. Let us know who you are and where you're from. We have Viridescent Channel Guidance who says it's all good.
It's all good with the tech challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little nerve wracking sometimes.
Big Woo is in the house. We have Benita Sutton. How are you? Good to see you.
How are you?
Sentahuti is here.
Sentahuti?
Yes.
Oh, Sentahuti forever. Ankin Ma'at, Ankin Ma'at.
We have Minnie Williams from Forest, Mississippi, going on 2 years.
Ankin Ma'at.
Inspired was very disappointed in Garfield paying Dr. Carrier. You are the better human.
Dwa, Dwa, Dwa.
Benita Sutton is hailing from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have Sen Jason Holmes here.
Ankin Ma'at, one of our new initiates of the Shrine of Ma'at and someone that we've had lots of interaction with. Ankin Ma'at to you, dear Sen.
The Chafers representing Ghana.
Ankin Ma'at coming out of Ghana, West Africa, one of our favorite places on the planet. And clearly, as New York City is going through that period where you're not exactly sure whether it's going to be rain, snow, or cold, or just decent, trust me, Ghana is where we would rather be right now. It really is.
More than you know.
It really is.
Peace out to Sadiq Bashir. Good to see you. The Inspired One says, hailing from Dallas, Texas. Texas is big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a lot of folks in Texas.
Less than 6 months. Nefert Ma'at is here with us.
Ankin Ma'at.
Iridescent says he's been with us 1.5 years from White Plains.
Oh, wonderful. Not far from here. Ankin Ma'at.
And Sinette Oye is here.
Ankin Ma'at holding down Philly.
Yes. By way of Philadelphia. Oye keeps me laughing. King Moore is here from Cleveland, Ohio.
Ankin Ma'at.
And of course, Sentahuti forever reps Phoenix.
He's repping Phoenix. He's the Jati of Phoenix.
The first Ma'at is repping Sacramento, California, so out on the West Coast again.
Wonderful.
Jennifer Tidwell from Akron, Ohio.
Ankin Ma'at.
Ardent Plumbing, good to see you again. And Boots and Shot is in the forest with Waldo.
She said she's in the forest with Waldo? Is that what she said?
I guess that's where Connecticut is.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Serenity Joy, also known as Sebaka Second in North Beach, Maryland. Good to see you.
Ankh Ma'at.
Jean Baptiste Jose. Good to see you. Another new initiate.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sinette Brittany out in DMV.
Ankh Ma'at. I think I saw him put something on the Veves up too. I didn't get a chance to look at the whole thing, but I found it very interesting.
Yeah, he's out in Naples, Florida.
Ankh Ma'at.
Yashura Yasakina Ra. Good to see
Ankh
you.
Ma'at, one of
Carolina.
our initiates coming through this particular initiation class. Ankh Ma'at. She's in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Ankh Ma'at to you, Sinette.
And Herosar Ankh Amun Ra out in Dallas, Texas.
Ankh Ma'at, with that powerful name I always mention every time.
Let's see, who else do we have? Tahuti Ma'at Ra Sirius out in Wichita, Kansas.
Ankh Ma'at. Ankh Ma'at.
Schaefer saying major rainy seasons rapidly approaching Ghana. I'll still take that.
Yeah, but when you have rainy seasons, it's not like New York rainy seasons.
It comes
during April, it'll have like 3 days where it's just raining. Just rain. My understanding is that during the rainy seasons, it'll rain really heavy and then you'll have some sun during the day. I could live with that. I could live with that.
Let's say Serenity Joy is also one of our initiates.
Ankh Ma'at. So does Serenity Joy know by another name?
Let us know your other names.
Ankh Ma'at.
We have Sen Cleo, or a member out in Barbados.
Ankh Ma'at.
Nefert Sama'at says, I am an initiate. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Alicia Bradley from Battle Creek, Michigan. Wonderful.
Ankh Ma'at.
Olivia, I'm calling her by her government name. McGraw.
Shenka. Sinette Shenka.
Sorry about that.
Ankh Ma'at. Sinette Shenka.
We have Edsel Peterson out in Rochester, New York. Welcome.
Ankh Ma'at. Upstate. We complaining about the weather here. Upstate usually gets it worse than we do.
Yeah, I see Peter Umbalawa. I recognize
that name is familiar, isn't it?
Yes. And Nefert Sama'at is also known as Sinette Felicia.
Oh, Fifi. Sometimes she's Fafea. Should we be calling you Sinette Serenity Joy? Is that what we should be calling? You know, some of our new initiates.
So that's Nefert Sama'at.
That's Nefert Sama'at. Okay, we're getting accustomed and acquainted with all of our full family members, and hopefully we'll see them in person soon if we can.
We have Heruja Huti Pata Umika Temra.
That is a long name.
It's a great name. Out in Oakland, California. Wonderful.
I'm going
to email you tomorrow.
And I get a text from Abutsashat saying, y'all messing up these folks' names. Look at her. You know what?
Yeah, you can say that out in the forest.
She's out in the forest of Connecticut, not reading names. Why don't you come and do Kemetic Ascension with us so you can get it straight? I'm calling her out. I know she thought I wasn't going to say it. She sent me a private text. I put her on blast.
We call it out the way. Where are you?
You see, we're putting up with in the background. You know that we have the Wenwet, the 9 priests that are the leaders of the Shrine of Ma'at. They run the Shrine of Ma'at with us. So we get to tease them. But they put in a lot of work. And we're teasing Abutsashat. Our Wenwet, they are doing work. So, you know, it's helpful to be able to have them along with us.
We have Clint from Flint.
Oh, that's easy to remember. Ankh Ma'at to you, Brother Clint.
Michigan. Wonderful. Yes, and Shenka made sure to remind us that that's her name.
Jeanette Shenka, that's right.
Yes. Brother Coben is in the house, also Flint, Michigan.
Ankh Ma'at, Michigan's in the house.
Bro Pempanzi, Obibini, Kanefer, Webin Ra.
Woo!
It's just fun to say Kemetic names. I can't tell you.
He's out in Philly. That's Philly. I believe he's in North Philly. Yes. Yeah, that's Philly over there.
Sen Richard Douglas, another initiate.
Yes, Ankh Ma'at.
For business, wonderful.
Oh, he's in Houston?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right. Noble
I wish I was in Houston right now. Yesterday was ridiculous. I'm sorry. Yesterday was, listen, it didn't snow that hard, but I got out of the car and I heard something that sounded like somebody was walking up on me. Now, you know, I'm from New York, so somebody walk up on me. I turn around to see who's walking that close to me. It was the wind. You hear what I'm saying? When the wind confuses you that it's a brother trying to catch you slipping, you have a problem. I literally turned around like, who walking up on me? And the wind said, slap. Listen, this is bad. This is bad. I cannot wait for the spring to be in full effect. I'm done with winter.
I'm also going to warn y'all that the Hemnetter is a little delirious today because he was
I
up
got
all
no
night
sleep.
after debating some
I got
crazy
no
dude
sleep.
named Black Jesus Minister and you know, etc.
And Garfield. And well, I am a little delirious, but understand that after finishing that, some of you might have been on and seen that we went till maybe 2 o'clock or someplace around there. After that, I still had to prepare for Kemetic Ascension. So I didn't go to sleep until around 5. So yeah.
So Serenity Joy says we know her as Sebaka second.
Yes. I remember that name. Ankin Ma'at. Sanet Sebaka second. By the way, that's a powerful name as well.
Mm-hmm. Noble Sammy Sutton out in Jackson, Mississippi.
Ankin Ma'at.
Oh, Robert James, good to see you out in London.
Ankin Ma'at, that's the UK in the house.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
I'm planning to come over there. I'm planning to do a trip there next year to be able to do a tour of the British Museum. And then I would love to be able to try to figure out how to get over to Paris, spend half the time in London and half the time in Paris. Send Robert James, please let me know if that's something you might be interested in helping us coordinate so that we can come to the UK and to France. We'd love to do that.
And see, we have our Hertz Monique, Trish, right, who traveled with us last summer from Houston, Texas.
Wow, Ankin Ma'ad, it's good to hear that you're in the house.
Yes. So Art has a question about if you're attending the Hoppy tour with the new date.
In Detroit?
Yes.
Are you talking about the tour in Kemet? Or are you talking about the Hoppy conference that's going to be in Detroit the last weekend of April? Because the conference in Detroit, yes, I will be there. The conference, if they've announced a new trip date, they haven't spoken to me about it yet. But I don't believe that I'll be part of that. We have our own trip in August, so.
Good to see you, Aaron Bryant. Welcome.
Ankin Ma'at.
Let's see. Sinet Newt is here.
Sinet Newt out of Boston. I need to come that way too. Listen, as the world reopens, I am really planning to do a lot of museum tours, so I'll be in that direction soon, hopefully.
Daria Ware, another initiate.
Ankin Ma'at, another one of our 2022 initiates. They'll have a name soon that they'll, after a few weeks, they'll get together and decide their name.
Mm-hmm. Ashley Amara, good to see you.
Ankin Ma'at.
We have another initiate, Curtis Jackson.
Ankin Ma'at.
Oh, and Arden is asking about Kemet. So yes, we will be in our own trip this August from the 1st to the 10th, but not on the Hoppy. I
haven't seen the Hoppy dates yet. Can you to put the dates in there for us? I want to know when the trip is because Taki and I have been missing each other the last day or so.
So that Alanike out in the Gambia, another nice place I'd like to
and Sinet Ashley Amara, isn't that she's the initiate that's in? Is that the initiate that's in Ireland?
Oh, let us know.
Yeah, I think that
she's the one that's furthest away.
Yeah, I believe so.
I mean, imagine astronomer in Ireland. And I hope
that's
our brother out in India joins us today too.
Yes. That's Sinet. That's Abu Sashat giving us the assist and reminding us who
Amara
folks are.
says she's in Las Vegas. So
oh, it's not. Oh, no. That's of course. I'm not familiar with the whole name. Of course, I know Sinet Ashley. We spent time in Vegas together. Of course. By the way, I found it very interesting. She posted that she did something on the Kepra before initiation. I found that fascinating. It's always good to be on the same wavelength. Absolutely.
Rael, good to see you. Atun Amun Ra. Let us know where you are. Sajmeet, Ubuntu, and Ma'at.
Another one of our initiates. And keep in mind, she was also initiated in the Shrine of Ptah. And so she's one of those folks that's been around for some time and now going to be a full member of the family of the Shrine of Ma'at. We're honored to have you.
Yeah, so they're keeping the dates on the low for Happy.
Oh, so they don't have the...
Just because of how it ended last time, so.
Okay. Shoot me a private message and let me know if you can. Because I want to know what the... Now, listen, I'm going to find out what the dates are. I'm sure that that's what Taki was calling me about yesterday, and I called him. We didn't get to each other. So that's the deal. And there's a possibility that he may be trying to send some of you on our trip as well. So we'll see. Okay? Yeah, and the craziness that happened, I wish I could talk about it here. I can't. Look at Anika wave and say, do not say nothing. Listen, I'm going to just say to you, that happy trip is going to be fine. Okay? It's going to be fine. There's no reason to be concerned. Some folks got really nervous and pulled out, and that forced Taki's hand. But the reality is, if you go on their trip, you're going to have an amazing journey. That's that simple.
Aset Rod Nefra Atuna in Boston.
Anken Ma'at, another Boston person, huh?
Mm-hmm. We're looking for someone interested in a wedding in October in Jackson, Mississippi.
Really?
Why I can't get that out, I don't know.
I haven't been to Mississippi in many years. I would love to actually do that if possible.
Email in the chat, and if you could just send us the details.
Anken Ma'at.
We're getting a lot of wedding requests right now.
Yeah, because with the world reopening, all those folks that are planning to get married for the last 2 years that waited, they're like, look, the world is reopening. I can finally have my wedding. I really get it. I really get it. Oh, I didn't even notice Nika's wearing her beautiful collar today. And see, I'm exhausted. I've been seeing her for some time. I didn't notice what she was wearing. I'm just, listen. And it's going to be a very long day. It's going to be a very long day. I mean, our day began early, and it's probably going to go until kind of late tonight as well. So it's going to be a long, look at Anika, look at her head. She just put her head to the side. It's going to be a long day. So we're going to definitely hang in there and do what we need to do.
So we have Vonda out in Greenville, South Carolina.
Anken Ma'at.
In Humble, Texas.
Anken
Texas
Ma'at.
is taking over.
Yes.
We have got to get y'all together. There's so many of you
Amanda
out there.
is in Ireland. You know, Bootsashot, you really should be sitting here. She should be sitting here.
Now we have an anonymous user out in Cincinnati, Ohio. Tell us who you are.
Anken Ma'at.
Rael is looking for some prospects for weddings online.
Oh, prospect. Woo! I guess we know now. You mean our initiate, Rael? Oh, come on now. You didn't need to say that there. We find some Kemetic brothers that now where is Sinet Rael again? Where are you again?
Oh my goodness. Oh, so that Fafanta is here out in Hyattsville.
Anken Ma'at, one of our full members from Kepura Ma'at. Anken Ma'at.
Ellen Rollins. Oh, sorry. That's your government name. Ma'ati Aset out in San. This is moving so quickly. San Jose, California. Welcome.
Anken Ma'at. I've never been to San Jose. And I always, as someone who reads history and I know that Dr. Maulana Karenga is in San Jose. At least he taught in that area. So I always read about San Jose and always wonder what it's like. So Anken Ma'at to you.
Okay. Oh, so that Benita was saying that she sent you a message about marrying her and her husband last year. They did the ceremony, but they want to do another one.
Oh, did you send me a message?
So I put the email on the screen. So anyone who has special requests, please send it to that email.
Oh, yes, please do. I'm sorry if I dropped it, if I didn't notice it.
Okay. Busha is saying she's discreet. What are you looking for, man, too? Is that what you want us to announce? I'm in a wicked mood today.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
That's what happens when I'm sleep deprived.
Listen, and you should know, Anika, she watched a good portion of that debate. So because I was up much later, but she wasn't. It's not like she went to bed early and is all refreshed. Oh, that was a wonderful nap. She was up late, annoyed as well. You know what I mean?
The first Saba Addison, Northern California. wonderful. We have a lot of good West Coast people.
Yeah, we do.
There's a lot of people looking for. We need to start a Kemetic dating service.
Oh yeah, yeah. It should be dating service for folks in the conscious community. I think. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree. Because the challenge is if you don't find someone who has the same worldview, it's difficult. Listen, I'm gonna tell you, I dated people before Anika, right? People that I thought at the time I was madly in love with. I remember the sister I was in a really serious relationship with when I met Anika. I had this dream about Kemet, and the dream had spiritual significance. I know what its significance is now. And I remember waking up and telling about the dream. She said, "Oh, it's the demons. It's the demons on you. We got to pray to Jesus." I was like, "Wait a minute. How long have you do you think I'm still praying to Jesus? Are we actually not even in the same? I mean, do you know me?" So anyway, just know that it's a challenge when you don't have someone who views the world the way you do. I'm not saying that if you have a relationship where someone is of a spiritual tradition that it's doomed, but I am saying that it can be challenging. And so if you find someone who's in a similar has a similar worldview, similar spiritual background, it's much easier to have a union that will work.
I'm just gonna say, all the available brothers that are online right now, put your information in the chat. Because it might sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. There are a lot of sisters in the chat.
There are tons of sisters.
And why not find somebody
and
in
there,
spiritual
listen,
home?
There have always been a lot of sisters in the Kemetic tradition, more sisters than men. Now the shrine is unusual because we tend to have almost equal numbers of men to women. It's a little unusual in that way, at least unusual to all the other shrines I've had interaction with. And so you gotta let us know. Just let us know.
I'm having fun with the chat this morning. Y'all are really y'all are really brightening my day. Always y'all looking for mates. Put your information in the chat. The ladies are looking.
Uh-oh. Something going on. Come on, keep talking. What is she just looking at the chat? And I can't see the chat. She just enjoyed it herself and smiling while I'm back here standing in front of a camera.
Oh wow. Okay, I think that's
everyone. That's most of everyone. Ankh and Ma'at to you all. Ankh and Ma'at to you all. It is amazing that we get to spend time with you. And I know Anika is only half joking when she's talking about the fact that you should actually, if you can, find people that are in your spiritual tradition, or at least in similar spiritual traditions, to have unions with. That she's only half joking. And I'm going to say to you, this in some ways is also why we created the Shrine of Ma'at, because we were Kemetic practitioners that were not as connected to weekly or monthly or daily sessions, right? The Shrine of Ptah shifted a little bit at one point. It went through a little bit of a challenged period. Baba Heru was really struggling with the changes. You should know that Baba Heru is resilient as any practitioner can be. So he is still Baba Heru. But at that time, it meant that we were replicating and trying to recreate community when the Shrine of Ma'at came about. And that's the reason why we have these gatherings. It's the reason why we have initiates. It's the reason why we have things that folks do and committees, because we really do believe that creating community has been part of the missing element in some of the African spiritual traditions, especially public communities, because you'll find that there are communities of African spiritual practitioners elsewhere, but the challenge is often you just don't see them. You don't know where they are. I'll never forget driving a cousin home once, right? She lived in Far Rockaway, drove to Far Rockaway, right? It's a long time ago. And as I was driving, I was by the beach. I got out of the car to look at the beach, and I saw a moonlight ceremony going on. And I remember thinking, how many people know this is happening, right? It was late at night. It must have been 10 o'clock at night, right? So just think about the fact that there are these communities, but they tend to be a bit secret. I remember working at a place, and a new assistant came in and was working, and my staff, I was having a staff meeting, and they said, they were talking when I came in the room, and they were mentioning the fact that she wears white every day. They were like, she even has a white coat. I said, oh, she's probably going through initiation. They said, what? What are you talking about? And I said, well, is she wearing beads? They said, yeah, there are these little beads around her neck. I said, she's probably wearing a leke. They said, how do you know that? I said, because I'm an African spiritual practitioner and I recognize other African spiritual practitioners. They said, I don't know if you're right about that, Jabari. She seems like everybody else. What did that mean, by the way? Do you know, as soon as that conversation was coming to a close, she came in to bring something in. And I said, sis, have a seat for a second. They were talking about you. Can you tell them about your attire? And she said, oh yeah, I'm going through my initiation. I'm going to wear white for a year. And they were like, how did he know that? He hadn't even met her yet. I just want you to know that for a very long time, practitioners of African spiritual traditions in the West have been secret. Have been secret. It is time for us to be authentically African. It is time for us to reclaim our traditions in their fullness and apologize to no one. Everyone else can do what they want to do. I was raised and spent a good part of my formative years in the Catholic tradition, the Roman Catholic tradition. Now that I'm a Kemetic priest and a Kemetic spiritual practitioner, people say, you're not from Egypt. Nobody asked me if I was from Italy when I was a Roman Catholic. But now, of course, that we are in the African traditions, people will challenge whether we have the right. And you know what I always want to say to them? You're entitled to your own position, your own opinion, no matter how wrong and confused it is. You have no right, no commentary on my spiritual tradition. Mind your business. And we need to mind our business. Our business must be about resurrecting the African traditions. So let me step off the soapbox and say that we begin our tradition, our gatherings with the opening of the way. It is the ritual that reminds us that we are divine vessels, imbued with divine energy, hewn of divine energy, with all of the rights, responsibilities, and powers of the divine. So please stand with me as we do the opening of the way. You're going to stand in the position of adoration.
And we're going to use this one today to specifically ask for some divine brothers for our sisters online. They have requested that. So we're going to hook you up today. We're going to try and focus on that today. We're also going to do altar work. We're going to talk to you about using your altar to find your divine mate. So.
Is that many people asking, that she felt that she should say that?
Yes. So we have to focus on that energy.
Okay.
Help out our sisters.
Yeah,
brothers
I think that
brothers come forth. They're looking for you.
It's important. It's important. These divine unions need to occur, because the other thing is, when you have divine couples and you're creating divine family, there'll be individuals that grow up in African tradition. It won't be unusual to them. They won't have to go through a point where people are saying she has tissue on her, where people are saying that they're strange. You see, I wasn't looking at her before, right? I was not looking at her before. I was just, listen, I didn't get much sleep. Anyway, let's do the opening of the way. Please stand in a position of adoration with your left foot forward, your right foot back. Expose your palms in front of you. This is the way that you can literally feel energy. And as you do that, put the left hand a bit further forward and keep the right hand a bit further back. The right hand can also be a bit lower than the left hand. Now, don't do this. I see people do this. On the walls, you do not see people with that kind of really harsh angle in their arm, okay? If you bend it ever so slightly. You can even keep it completely straight. This is called the position of adoration. And it's a position that you will see our ancestors utilize to both give and receive divine energy for thousands of years. We should do as they did. Now what we'll do is we'll take a deep breath from our abdomen and chant the word for everlasting life. Ankh. Let's begin.
Anetrak in bet het.
Anetrak in bed het.
Nuke in bet het.
Nuke in bed het. Anetrak happy.
Anetrak happy.
Nuke happy.
Nuke happy.
Twal winter.
Twal winter.
Turn to the right.
Anetrak serket.
Anetrak serket.
Nuke serket.
Nuke serket. Anetrak keb senuf.
Anetrak keb senuf.
Nuke keb senuf.
Nuke keb senuf.
Twal winter.
Twal winter.
Turn to the right.
Anetrak ast.
Anetrak ast.
Nuke ast.
Nuke ast. Anetrak amset.
Anetrak amset.
Nuke amset.
Nuke amset.
Twal winter.
Twal winter. Anetrak neat.
Anetrak neat.
Nuke neat.
Nuke neat. Anetrak dwamutef.
Anetrak dwamutef.
Nuke dwamutef.
Nuke dwamutef.
Twal winter.
Twal winter. Anetrak newt.
Anetrak newt.
Nuke newt.
Nuke newt. Anetrak geb.
Anetrak gab.
Nuke geb.
Nuke gab.
Twal winter.
Twal winter.
Anetrak shoe.
Anetrak shoe.
Shoe. Shoe. Shoe. Shoe. Nuke shoe.
Anetrak tefnut.
Anetrak tefnut. 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 Nuke tefnut. Twal winter. Anetrak paut in teru. Nuke paut in teru. Anetrak and boo in teru. Nuke and boo in teru. Twal winter. Twal winter. Dwa, 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 dwa. Please remember to do the opening of the way. It's the ritual that actually connects you to those divine entities, those divine energies that have created and maintained the universe. And when you do the opening of the way, you remember that you are the divine entity. And by extension, all of those things that are besetting you, all of those things that are challenging to you, all those things that may seem to be insurmountable are things that are beneath you, are things that are actually within your control. So please remember to do this ritual whenever you do anything important. And clearly, your day is important. You should start the day with the opening of the way. So, at this point, we go into Hesi. And I'm going to honestly say to you, Jabari has been so exhausted and so spent that I didn't even prepare a Hesi. I think that we said that we would do something simpler today, something that can be used as a mantra. What do I mean when I say mantra? Mantra in many ways is the same word as Hesi. It's one of those things that you can speak that is repetitive, and in many ways you can sort of go on autopilot while saying these divine words, and it'll allow you to reach higher heights, let's say, as you continue to chant it. So the one that we're going to do today, I think Anika, you said that we should do the Ra Hesi, the Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra, right? It's very simple, right? And it's the kind of Hesi that you could do walking, the kind of Hesi you can do washing the dishes, the kind of Hesi that you can do while you're cleaning the house. It's the kind of Hesi you can do while you're gardening, while you're planting, while you're putting your hands in the earth and trying to bring forth the beauty or even the sustenance from the earth. It's the kind of Hesi you can simply just go into and use. And it recognizes the phases, the movements of the sun. When the sun comes out of the body of Mother Newt, it is the early sun, the recreated sun, the transformed sun, and that sun is called Kepa Ra. So there's Kepa Ra in the beginning, described as the beetle. And then when it reaches its apex in the sky, you see that it is sometimes depicted as the sun with rays coming from it, at least during the time that Akhenaten was describing Aten Ra. That is one of the ways that it was depicted. And that one would, it is the sun at its highest. Let's describe it that way. The sun at its most powerful form. That is the Aten Ra. And then we see the completed sun, the mature sun. That is Amen Ra. You can say Amen Ra. You can say Amun Ra. Please don't get caught up on how it's said. But I do want you to know that when Western scholars started speaking the name, they intentionally used to call it Amun Ra because they didn't want to offend the practitioners of the Abrahamic tradition that were using the word Amen. But clearly, this is something that you should be aware of. So it's Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Amen, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, 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 Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra,
Aten Ra, Amen Ra.
Aten Ra,
Aten Ra, Amen Ra.
Amen Ra.
Aten Ra, Amen Ra.
Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra,
Aten Ra,
Aten Ra,
Aten Ra, Amen Ra.
Amen Ra.
Aten Ra, Amen Ra.
Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra. This is a simple Hesi. I feel warmer. You could actually feel it drawing energy if you're doing breathing along with it. And obviously, when you're doing it in groups, you can sing it around. That means that someone can start later. You'll also see that there's a point where you might even decide to just draw out Kepa Ra while the other folks do the Kepa Ra, Aten Ra, Amen Ra, and then draw out each of them. If you were doing it in a group, you'd have sections draw it out. Because also what you're doing when you're doing Hesi, when you're doing these chants that allow you to galvanize divine energy and perhaps even go into another plane, this is the time that people tend to go into trance as well. One of the things that you're also doing is you are utilizing your lungs. You're actually filling them with air. And this is one of the ways that you are continuing to draw divine breath for your sustenance. It's a really powerful thing to do, and hopefully you will do it as well. Now listen, simply because you've seen us do it doesn't mean you can't make your own Hesi, doesn't mean you can't sing the Hesi out elsewhere, doesn't mean you can't teach Hesi to other people. You should actually just have folks around and just do some Hesi. Do some Hesi and draw divine energy. Draw divine energy. I would love to sit around a fire just doing Hesi. You know, it's ironic because we have this wonderful fire pit in the backyard in the back, and we don't use it that much because we don't like the cold. And there's a point in New York City that the fire pit ain't doing enough, right? It's just you're just like, what am I doing here? So as we enter into the end of winter, maybe we'll be able to do that more. But you should use Hesi as well.
I want to say Twa'u for the donations that are coming in.
Twa'u, Twa'u, Twa'u.
To Sinet Denitra, to Sinet
Ooh, our Denitra, our Demetra.
Yeah.
Demetra, who actually is one of the full members of the Shrine Mod.
Yes, Sinet Minnie, Sen Curtis, Twa'u, and Jones. It just says Jones. Twa'u to all of you.
Ankan Ma'at to you. And Dua for your donations. We need donations to do what we do. Clearly we do. And you should know that it's really important to be able to have the kind of assistance, because Kemetic Ascension actually costs something. It's not, we're not able to do it. We're able to bring it on for free, as you can imagine. And so it's really important for us to be able to get your assistance. So at this point in our gathering, we go into what we call the word from the Sebayit. The word from the Sebayit. And the Sebayit is the body of literature created in Kemet that in many ways means wisdom literature. Wisdom literature. It's the literature that our ancient Kemetic ancestors created to, in many ways, inculcate their most important concepts of living in divine balance. And today what I'd like to do is talk a bit about communicating with our ancestors. We know, as people of African descent, communicating with our ancestors is perhaps one of the most important things that we do. It is African. It is African. Now, I'm not saying that there are other people on the planet that don't communicate with ancestors, but I am saying that there is nary an African that does not seek to draw in divine energy. If I just go to the corner this evening and I see those brothers out there passing around whatever spirits they are sharing, you will see them pour a little out. This is one of the ways that they are communicating with and giving sustenance to the ancestors. They say they pouring some out for the homies that are not there. And so I want you to recognize that that is something that Africans have done, probably for tens of thousands of years at least. But we have descriptions of our Kemetic ancestors doing this for definitely over 5,000 or 6,000 years. And so I want you to understand that that is, we were able to see it when writing became a thing. That's just the best way to describe it. As writing became a thing, we began to see it written down. But the reality is, it was likely something that our Kemetic ancestors were doing, that our African ancestors were doing, that ancestors that lived long before there was a Kemet were doing for a very, very long time. And so as we talk about communicating with the ancestors, we begin with this scene. And as you look at it, you know that you are looking at what is called a judgment scene. I know you see the prominently placed scales, where actually the Lady Ma'at has been transformed into the very balance of the cosmos, that she is literally the standard by which we must be morally, ethically judged. And that is entirely consistent with all of the things that we read about this great, great divine woman. And so here we see this individual has made they've died. Their physical form has ceased to exist. I didn't say they made their transition yet, because this is the transition. This is the point of transition that you're looking at here. And you should know that when you see this brown brother coming by himself, it is likely the scene from one Kemetic ancestor. Who is this? Who is this? Which judgment scene is this? Now, you know very well, you should know, that if you were able to, in ancient Kemet, each person that made their transition would have tried to have a copy of the Reyu Pert and Heru and Ger in their tomb along with them. And this is where we see the judgment scene come from. Some of them were finely, very, very brilliantly illustrated. And so this one comes from which ancestor? Good. That means that you've been following along. Let me ask this. Did anybody say Ani?
No.
Oh, that means we have people that have been watching for a long time. Usually people say Ani. Who is this? Hunefer. This is Hunefer. This is Hunefer. Good. Very, very good. I'm so glad that you actually were able to identify him properly. This is Hunefer, right? And so you're actually seeing him in the beginning enter here, and he actually is paying homage, by the way, with the position of adoration, but a more challenging version that we generally call the Kes. Now, I want you to know, sitting like that is not easy. And you might think, oh, he's just kneeling. Okay, you just go. Don't do it with shoes on. You see shoes on his feet? No. I want you to do this and sit there for a while and see how it feels, okay? We call this the Kes. This is a more honorific version of the position of adoration. You're not just giving and receiving divine energy. Now you're actually giving and receiving divine energy while paying homage. And so that is what he is doing for the Neteru at the top. And you can even see that in front of them, he has given them what? What is that in front of him? Immediately in front of his left knee, you are seeing something. What is that? Who has an answer? Let's see if someone has an answer. I want you to tell me, what is that item right in front of Hunefer?
Offering shrine.
An offering. This is an offering.
Ashley,
yes, wonderful, Sanette Ashley. Wonderful, Sanette Ashley. You're actually seeing that he is giving an offering to the Neteru. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. And as he is giving them an offering, you should know he is saying to them, I pay you homage, I give you honor, I receive and I give divine energy. And he's also asking for admittance into A'aru, admittance into Taseket Ma'at, admittance into that which we might even call heaven. Now, heaven is not a Kemetic word, but I want you to understand what's happening here. They don't agree. Some have ankhs on their knees, some do not. The ones that do not are not convinced. So because he's not convinced, and because you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with ankhs, divine life, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 without ankhs, there is a tie. Then his heart needs to be weighed. And you see Anpu entering him in towards the scales. His heart is weighed against the feather, and he is judged eligible for the afterlife. So in this third panel, 1, 2, and then 3, now you see that he is actually going to greet Asar. Asar, the Kenti Amentiu, the foremost of the Westerners. The person whose death allows us to enter into Taseket Ma'at. This is powerful. Yes, let's hear the question.
Are there any scenes where the person goes straight through?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I think it'd be very interesting to see someone do that. I think that most people who were having these made were humble about those things that they did that they might have regretted. Those things that they did that they knew were transgressions of Ma'at, and that's probably why it wasn't depicted this way. But it's a good question because, you know, this is an if-then scene, right? You should recognize that Hunefer, it is possible that someone would have actually been so divine, actually had done so much for those around them that they would not need to enter into the hall, into the area where they're going to be weighed. It's possible that could happen. Sure. I also find it fascinating that they're not always the same Neteru up here. I would love to know why one person has some Neteru and another person has others. Very interesting. In some of the descriptions, you'll see Neteru sitting side by side. Why? I can't tell you. I think it's interesting that you actually see their names here, right? We even see a version of Ast sitting here, a version of Inbet Het sitting here. You can read their names. Right in front of their face is their name.
Question.
Fascinating. Yes, another question.
Are there any scenes where a person is devoured by a moot?
No.
Yeah.
No. We don't see those either. This is Kemetic spiritual philosophy. But I don't think that they would have written something that says, oh, guess what? This is written for me, but I went to hell. Now, hell is not our term. This was written for me, but I was not good enough to go into heaven. This is Kemetic spiritual philosophy, right? But you should understand in the philosophy, one could be devoured. In the spiritual philosophy, one could be Makeru, could be so clearly judged Makeru or Chura voice that they would not even need to be weighed. It's possible in the philosophical sense that's the way that we depicted entering into the afterlife. Sure, absolutely. The piece that I want you to recognize is that we are seeing Hunefer become an immortal soul. That in fact, Hunefer, actually, because he has been judged Makeru, victorious or Chura voice, now we see that he doesn't even die truly. So if our ancestors are able to actually enter into a realm in which they continue to exist, we should actually recognize that we should continue to have access to them. How do we have access to our ancestors? That's the question that we should ask. Take a look at this scene. Here's another wonderful scene where you actually see, now this is an amazing altar. Look at the altar here in front of this priest. Do you see the brother in the back here that has the leopard cloth on?
A couple questions.
Yes, questions.
The energy of Asar and Jesus would be the same, right? Although we know that the truth was stolen and changed to other forms.
I think that I'd be cautious in saying the energy of Asar and Jesus are the same, because the story of Jesus seems to draw from several different spiritual stories in ancient Kemet, not just one. So I don't want to make a one-to-one comparison, Asar, Jesus. You'll also see parts of the story of Heru in the story of Jesus as well. And so that's an important distinction. But in many ways, you could also say that in the judgment scene, maybe Jesus is more the Heru figure, right? Because we see Heru now granting Hunefer into access to Asar. But I want you to recognize there is no one-to-one comparison for several reasons. One, because Heru and Asar are actually not literal beings, so that some of the descriptions of their behaviors, some of the descriptions of some of the things that they've done, they change sometimes depending on how you describe the Kemetic spiritual story. In these days, the story of Jesus is usually described as a literal historical story. By the way, that's the reason why Jabari is so tired, because we were having that conversation last night. That's why Nika's laughing, because she's like, man, he's talking about it again. Is he gonna sleep tonight? So that is part of what's happening. But because the story of Jesus is described as a literal historical story, it's like Jesus did this, and this. And there's not supposed to be any variation. There is, in fact, variation. Okay? There's even variation in the dates of his birth. And so with that, we should understand that we are actually seeing that it's sometimes difficult to say that Jesus is Asar or Jesus is Heru. We should say that the story of Jesus or Yeshua was based on the traditions that come out of the Kemetic tradition, based partially on the story of Asar, based partially on the story of Heru and others. There's another question?
Yes. Was this transcribed before or after he passed?
Good question. I would assume that because this looks like it was extremely difficult to do, they must have started this at the very least before he passed. They must have started before he passed, because this looks like it would have taken a long time to do. You know, when he was making his transition, just as some people buy their plots or buy their coffins before they die, I'm assuming that he met with someone to prepare this this document for him. I'm assuming that's what happened. We don't know that for sure. I'm sure that there are family members that prepared them or had them prepared for their relative that was going to make their transition. But this looks like it would have taken some time to prepare. So I'm assuming that it started during his life.
Question: Why?
Yes.
Is there a reason why women are sometimes depicted as lighter skinned in Kemetic paintings, or is it just the artist's interpretation?
I believe that we often see ladies depicted as lighter because there are two rationales that historians give. One, because ladies of great stature would not have had to spend a lot of time in the fields, so they tended not to be as dark. That's one commentary. But the larger commentary, the one that I think is more dead on, is that they are connecting the color of women to the color of the moon. The moon is feminine, the sun is masculine. And so that's part of the reason why they do that. Sometimes you'll even see them colored with a pale yellow color. Now, if you have gone to Kemet even today, you're really going to see someone with that color as they sit in that sun. So this, I believe, is primarily symbolic, particularly as we talk about women. Okay? Okay. So let's look. I want to go to this next slide here where you actually see that this person is an ancestor. Do you see them in Sahufied form? And we actually see Anpu, or this may actually be a priest dressed as Anpu, presenting the body of the deceased. And we see that the priests are making offerings to this person. We see that this person actually has, I love how this is a drawing of the stele of the person that died. And it even has in miniature form, I don't know if you ever noticed this, Anika, it has the Hotep Dinasu right there. Mm-hmm. It's a drawing of the stele that would have had the Hotep Dinasu. Do you see it? Yes, I do. So they actually drew this in such intricate form that I guarantee that as we see the person who's an ancestor making offerings to Asar, this stele might have actually existed. This is a drawing of something that actually existed. And we're actually seeing that this is the chapel area, the area where they would have made offerings to the person who was making their transition. This image is not just beautiful. This image is not just heartfelt. Do you see the ladies mourning the death of this person? Look at that. But we're also seeing that they are making offerings for the divine soul of the deceased. And in front of this priest, he's called a Sem priest, by the way, because you can see he's wearing the leopard cloth. You actually see a very intricate altar. Look at that one. Look at the intricacy of this altar. I challenge you to find scenes from Kemet that don't have altars in them. It's very rare. Usually when there's a Kemetic scene, there's an altar.
Question.
Yes.
What are the names of tools used for the opening of the mouth ceremony?
Say again?
What are the names of tools used for the opening of the mouth
ceremony? Very interesting answer. Now, I'm going to say to you, I don't believe this is a Kemetic word. Okay? I'd have to look for the Kemetic word, but you'll see, do you see that they have one, the two priests are holding one in their hand? Here's my rough hewn one. It still needs to be painted. I don't know why I haven't painted it yet. It needs to be painted. But I've used it even in this form in funeral ceremonies. This is generally called an adzd. An adz. And so this is the device that would have been used to supposedly help open the mouth of the deceased. An opening of the mouth was a philosophical concept that what you were trying to do is give the deceased all of the powers that they maintained in their life. That's what you were actually seeing. Okay, so opening of the mouth would have allowed them to take in sustenance. It would have allowed them to be able to speak. And so this is an important ceremony that we are seeing. And we actually see the priest holding them. We see the priest actually providing the deceased with incense. Powerful, powerful image that we see them providing them with incense. I think that this is amazing. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful scene. But they're not just showing us what happened in a historical ceremony for someone who made their transition. In many ways, they're showing us what we must do. That's what they're showing us, what we must do. Yes, we're going to be sorrowful because someone has made their transition. Look at the ladies. Yes, we're going to feel the absence of this person who died. But on the same token, we must provide offerings so that the divine soul of this ancestor may continue to live. You might say, well, what sort of offerings are you talking about, Jabari? What would you do? The image tells you right off the bat what you should do. You'll actually see that they actually are probably giving them an offering of some sort of liquid. It's probably water. And they're even using a vessel that looks very similar to this one. Look at this. This is beautiful. This is a vessel that we took from Kemet. It actually has Ra painted brilliantly on the front of it. It's made of alabaster. We love this vessel. We use it in ceremony. We use this vessel in ceremony. So it is very important to us. We recognize that those of you who are initiates that have had your initiate, well, if you're an initiate of the shrine, you've seen this vessel. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. I'm tired. I almost said too much. So you see a very similar vessel right here, right? Don't you see that? Very similar vessel. They're providing some sort of offering in liquid. We see them preparing to do the opening of the mouth ceremony. We see them actually giving probably wine to them. And we see them burning incense. The one in the back is burning incense. And that altar is just crazy. Look at all that stuff. Maybe those are carrots there on top. I think we're seeing flatbread. I think we're seeing bundles of scallions, perhaps. Scallions are one of those things that we often see in altars in ancient Kemet, by the way. It's very interesting that we see scallions. And we just, we use them as garnish today. Sometimes people will eat the food and leave the scallions on the plate because it's just garnish, right? Very interesting to me that was one of the things that they used. But you're going to see that if we are going to ensure that we continue to have access to our ancestors, we should do what our ancestors did. They're performing a ceremony that will allow us to continue to have access to these powerful individuals. On the right, you're seeing what some Western scholars would have called a false door. Ridiculous name. They call it a false door because we, as living beings that inhabit physical forms, cannot walk through it. That's ridiculous. The door is not for us. The door is actually for the person who has made their transition. And that door speaks to the fact that they should be able to come and go. That they should be able to go into the area, the land, the region of those who are Umakeru, heaven, let's call it right now. Let's say Aaru, just so you can hear some other phrases and get accustomed to them. And they should be able to return and have interaction with us. And at the top, you see the image of the person who has been deceased, sitting on a wonderful sacred chair and receiving offerings. Now look at those offerings there. And at the top above that, you're going to see once again the formulaic description, the Hotep Dinasu, which is an offering which the king and an Anpu give. And so this is something that we need to understand. If we want to continue to communicate with those people who have lived those wonderful lives, those people who have done so much for us, who we are mourning, we ought to make altars to them. That's one of the things that we should take away.
Question.
Yes, go ahead. Question.
How long is the process for a family who died to become an ancestor, a family member?
Usually the process is supposed to be about 70 days. Usually about 70. Who is the same person asking these very intricate questions? No? Interesting. Usually it's about 70 days. And this was the period in which the person would have been prepared to make the journey. And here you're seeing a beautiful drawing of Ra. And this one is Ra on his boat. This boat is meant to depict symbolically one of the vessels that an ancestor would have used to take the journey, into the realm of those who will live forever. This is magnificent, magnificent. And by the way, you'll also see these. Ancient Africans spend a lot of time giving offerings to ancestors. On the left, you are seeing what could be called a Hotep altar or a Hetep altar, an altar for offerings. This is where you would have given sustenance to the divine soul of an ancestor. And it actually looks like the glyph for Hetep or offering. We use the word Hetep as peace today, but you should know that it can also be translated as offering. And you can see that on this, you'll see several things. This looks like maybe a duck here. This is probably flatbread here. Maybe this is liquid. Maybe this is maybe water and wine. So you'll actually see that these are supposed to be symbolic offerings to the soul of the deceased. And on it again, what do we see written? The Hotep Di Nasu right here. Right? Did I see it? Wait, where does it begin? Maybe I'm not seeing the Hotep Di Nasu. I think it might be here, but my picture is not as clear as I'd like it to be. I think that's what we're seeing. But I want you to understand that as you look at this, you are seeing the fact that your ancestors continued to use really, really intricate mechanisms to continue to have access to the divine. And on the right, you're seeing what could be considered a Ba statue. It's meant to look like the person that made their transition. And we're actually saying that their human head is on the head of a bird. Why a bird? Do we become birds after we die? This is spiritual symbolism. Why the bird? Because this soul can come and go as they please. They can actually be in different places at different times. They can actually make the transition, be in the land of Ta-Seket Ma'at, those people who actually lived on forever, and return to our plane. And around their neck, we can see they wear their golden heart. That's their ab right there. Because remember, it was lighter than a feather, and it is now around their neck. Powerful. Anika, there's a question?
There are 3 questions.
Yes.
So 1, can any family member become an ancestor? 2, does everyone who transition become an ancestor? And 3, what if we're not buried in our Kemetic rites?
This is something that's very interesting, right? Our Kemetic ancestors believed that if you lived a life that was sacred, if you lived a life that was moral, if you restored Ma'at, you would have entrance into Ta-Seket Ma'at. You would go into heaven. You don't see, if you don't call the name of Heru, you can't go into heaven, because if you don't call him, he's not going to come for you. You don't see, hey, if you don't say Asar, you're not going to be here. That's not something you see in the Kemetic tradition. In the Kemetic tradition, it is more about what kind of life you lived. So if you don't do the rites, can someone have access to heaven? We should say yes. We should say yes. But I want you to recognize that these rites were created symbolically to aid in someone's transition into Ta-Seket Ma'at. And I'm also going to say to you that very often when we have these ceremonies, they're as much for people who have left, who have remained here, as they are for those who have gone on. And that's important for us to understand as well. As we're looking at the Ba statue, I want you to think about this. I want you to understand this. Our ancestors believed that death did not conquer us. In fact, the first time we see this written is in Kemet. The first time we see this written, it is in Kemet. Today, the idea of an afterlife is one that we hear most people around the world describe. But this was not common. This was not common at one point in human development. this concept comes from Africa. And I believe that it probably even predated Kemet. I can tell you definitively that it predated Kemet further into the interior of Africa. We'll actually see that this is occurring. Yes.
So what happens if you have a Christian funeral? Will you then be reincarnated, or how would the transition be different? And what happens if your heart is too heavy?
Well, if you have a Christian funeral, I don't believe that our Kemetic ancestors would say simply because you had a Christian funeral, you're not going to go to heaven. Our Kemetic ancestors recognized that the divine was larger than the way that we were able to describe them. So I think that that is important. But I do believe that if we're trying to describe, in my humble opinion, the most powerful and the most important way that one can make their transition, the ceremony that allows us to pay homage to this ancestor as they continue to live, the Kemetic tradition, the Kemetic ceremony is probably the one that is best attested, that is most powerful, in my opinion. And if your heart is heavier than the feather, you get devoured by a mood. You cease to exist. It's over. It's done. You don't get to say, I'm sorry. I know I killed people. I know I robbed people. I know I'm on the cross next to Jesus. Jesus, I believe you. I'm coming with you. Okay, come with me. You roll with me now. It does not work like that in the Kemetic tradition. You have to actually make amends. You have to restore Ma'at. And that is how it works. We're seeing other devices here, other very important ways that we see communication with the ancestors. I love these statues. We have Sekhmet, one of the priestesses, one of the divine priestesses, let's call her. She's in church. She's a goddess. I don't like using the word God because it's not Kemetic. It's not even Christian. But I want you to understand what I'm saying, who is connected to some of the rites of the deceased. And then we also see Imhotep on the right, who actually also connected with the concept that we will die and continue to live. We see Imhotep as someone who we believe was a literal, actual person. We actually see that Imhotep had offerings made to his divine soul for literally thousands of years after he passed. He was of critical importance. And in the middle, we see the device for, this is one of the jars. What are these called, by the way? What are these called? I want you to tell me what they're called. You're probably going to have a Greek version of the name. And I also want to hear the Kemetic version of the name. And then I want you, don't get cocky. Which of the deities is this? Let's see someone who answers all three. What is it? What's the Greek name? What would we have called it in Kemet? And which deity is that? I want to see if they can answer that.
And it shows as canopic jar.
A canopic jar is the Greek name because there was a deity known as Canopus.
And Aton Amun-Ra says Mesu-Heru.
The Mesu-Heru. Yes.
And So Inspired says the baboon.
It's a baboon. Which deity is it?
Sinet Shankar says Hapi.
Ah, there we go.
We're all working together as a team.
Yes. There. By the way, you can see his name is written right here. Hapi. That's what you're seeing. That's the name right there in the beginning. The name is written on there. You see that little box? That's the P sound. You see those two leaves? That's the E sound. The E, right? So you're seeing Hapi there. And they started his name with the Heh rope. I think that's cool. Isn't it, Anika? They didn't have to draw it this way. I think that's pretty cool. So you're seeing his name actually written at the beginning. What does Hapi contain? In this vessel, which organ is contained inside? I'm asking y'all a lot of questions today. Y'all thought I was going to just be doing all the teaching, huh? This is a little dusty. Take a look at that. There's Hapi. I love these vessels. I love these vessels. We brought them back from Kemet. They were carved out of basalt stone. Beautiful. Very heavy, by the way. By the way, when we actually bought these, when we actually got these, you don't have no idea how well we wrapped them. I was kind of like excited on the plane to be sure that they arrived safely and to know that we had these beautiful versions of the Mesu Heru. We have several versions. Those are the hand carved ones. Others we have are not necessarily hand carved. We even have a small version here in the Mesu Heru box. And you can see that each of them is here. Here goes the head of Hapi. I know that's a little small, but here's a small version. This would if this is the one for Hapi here. There's Hapi. This one is also hand carved and beautiful, I think. Do we have an answer?
Yes, the lungs.
The lungs. Hapi contains the lungs. We'll talk much more about these vessels in another discussion, okay? But I do want you to look at these and recognize that in many ways what we're seeing is the idea that your ancestors live forever. That your ancestors live forever. And I love this one. This truly gives us the concept that our ancestors will come and go, but that they will be able to interact with us. What are we looking at here? What is this? Who is it of? And why is it made this way? Do we have any idea what we are looking at? I'd like to know. Why is Jabari showing you this particular image? Has anyone actually seen it with their own eyes? Answers?
It's a spirit door.
It's definitely a spirit door. Absolutely. It's absolutely. Well, who did it belong to? Oh, stumped, huh?
Son Jason says Ptahotep.
Oh, this one's not for Ptahotep. Good try though. It's only a few. You can walk from Ptahotep to this one.
Charity says Vizier Meroruka.
Yes, this is for Meroruka.
Okay.
This is for Meroruka. Meroruka was the Jati. He was like the prime minister under one of the final kings of the Old Kingdom, under Pepi II. And as you look at him, he has a magnificent tomb. Magnificent tomb that today we would have called a mastaba out of the Greek word. It's not, we didn't call it a mastaba. We call these kinds of tombs the Purjet, the house of eternity. And so as you see this, you're seeing a large Ka statue, a large soul statue of Meroruka. Why? Because this is the place where you would have made offerings to him. If you look closely at these stairs, you're going to see another Hetep stele right there. It's broken, it's been chiseled. People were probably taking pieces of it. But I want you to recognize, ooh, time is really flying, huh? I want you to recognize that you're actually seeing that Meroruka is standing, coming in the other manner. He's coming out of the tomb. Our ancestors are trying to say that you can actually have our ancestors move in and out of the tomb. They can still have interaction with you. And here is the portion of the Regu Pert and Meru that I'd like to read as the hour is short. We started late due to our technical challenges, but I want you to, this is important. This is a prayer that those of you who are full members of the Shrine of Ma'at now know. We've been reading the Regu Pert and Meru together, and this is a very important prayer. We call it the Ta'ek Zu Empet. The Ta'ek Zu Empet. Who? The Ta'ek. Huh?
Diak. Who? Diak.
Oh yeah, it's not Ta, it's D. It's not even Ja. It's D.
It's Diak.
Why did he write it that way?
Because Budge does not know.
Yeah, it's the Diak Huampet. Diak Huampet. The D, you see the hand with that looks like a triangle on it, that's to give, right? So yeah, it's the Diak Huampet, right? We're giving you splendor in heaven. And this is a prayer that can be cited at a funeral. It's a prayer that can be cited at your ancestral altar. This is important. It comes out of the Reyu Perna Runger, that book that has been misnomered the Book of the Dead. And you'll actually see, I'm going to read it in English, and then I'm going to actually read it in the Kemetic language. Please listen to this. It's very powerful. It's the last 4 lines of the page. If you're reading the version that Budge translated, which I do not have down here right now, you'll actually see that it is on page 10. It says, "Give thou splendor in heaven, in Pet. Give thou splendor in Pet, might on earth, triumph in the Nitterhurt, sailing down to Jejedu as a eternal soul, as a living soul, sailing up to Abtu as a phoenix, going in and coming out without being repulsed at the pylons, the Seba of all of the Duat. May there be given to me loaves of bread in the house of coolness and offerings in the Yunu, a field enduring in the Sekhet Aruri, and wheat and barley in it, to the soul of Asar, the scribe Ani." So this comes from the Papyrus of Ani, but this is a wonderful prayer that asks for our ancestor to be able to have splendor in heaven, splendor in Sekhet Aru, in the land of those who have victory over death. Beautiful, beautiful. This is a wonderful prayer, and folks in the shrine know it. Our priests are expected to have it memorized. Priest, I may ask for you to recite it today. I told you last week. Let's see what you have. And I want to see if you recognize some of the more powerful concepts. First of all, when you see Ba, can you see that there's that same Ba statue with an offering, a burnt offering in front of it? We don't even have the time to go through all of this. Those of you who, we took a lot of time talking about this prayer in Sebait reading group. And if you're a full member of the shrine, you have access to the Sebait reading group every other Sunday at 1 p.m. Every other Sunday at 1 p.m. When we're not doing Kemetic Ascension, we're doing Sebait reading group, other than next week, because next week will be, by the way, you should know this is a good time to announce it. We'll actually be at the Tekken doing our spring equinox celebration, as we do at the equinoxes and the solstices. And so that will be amazing. But this prayer is one that you could even do when you erect your ancestral altar. What is one of the things that you should recognize here? I like this image, Akper. You see the image of the it's like a man going in one direction and the other. What are they trying to say? They are saying that you are asking that your ancestor have access to the physical world and have access to the eternal world, and that they will never not be allowed to enter into the land of the eternal whenever they like. Because you see here, it says, we want you to be able to go in and out without being repulsed at the sacred entryways of the Duat. Duat is another name for the afterlife, the world where the afterlife is. And then we see, may there be given to me loaves of bread in the house of coolness, offerings in Iunu, a field enduring in Sekhet Aruri. And so that is someone, that is actually, we're saying that we want to be able to allow this person to be able to receive offerings so they can continue to live. And those offerings will be made to the soul of the deceased as Asar. This is powerful. This is the prayer that you can read at your altar, your ancestral altar. Maybe not your working altar, if you do have a separate altar. Some people actually use the same altar for ancestors as they use as their working altar. Some people believe that your working altar should be different than your ancestral altar. But I am going to show you, for the sake of time, we won't take a lot of time on it. I want to show you an ancestral altar. Can you see this?
A little bit forward.
Closer towards the camera?
Okay, stop.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're seeing an ancestral altar. You're seeing an ancestral altar that we just created. You can see on it that we have life. Didn't you notice all of that greenery on the altars, the offerings to the ancestors in those images? We see the scales of Ma'at on this one. You don't have to make your altar exactly like ours. I'm giving you an idea of what you could have included. You'll actually see something so that you can have burnt offerings. You'll even see Ma'at here, a wonderful statue of Lady Ma'at with her golden feather. I don't know if I want to put, I'm going to take him off right now, just simply because I want to be able to put some other things on here. You're seeing an image of a statue of Asta, Sar, and Heru. You even see a good place to put your burnt offerings, because the last thing you want to do is burn down your altar and your house. So make sure you have a fireproof vessel. This one's an abalone shell. Look at this. It holds fire very well, and many practitioners use it for their sage. You can see we have a bundle of sage here as well. I also like to always have incense here. We have one of the vessels that you can put water in. And we even have the liquid that you can use for purification. This is the vessel for Florida water. We like to use Florida water. And of course, you will see this wonderful statue of Anpu preparing someone for their transition. I love these statues. This one is one that we also got from Kemet as well. But this particular altar, I'm going to just for a moment add a thing or two to it, because I am still speaking to the divine soul of my father. If this is an ancestral altar, why not include some items that actually are particular to the ancestor that you are focused on, right? What about including a food that they enjoyed? What about including some personal items, things that were important to them? Here's a picture of my father from junior high school. I love this picture. When he gave it to me, I was so happy to receive it. So I'm going to just sit this here. We don't have a ton of time left. And here's a bracelet. You might have noticed that I always wear Heru on my right hand to remind myself to do divine work every day. But I also want you to see that my father used to wear something very similar. Another bird of prey. Of course, his is gold, Guyanese gold. My mother gave it to him, I believe. He used to wear this on his wrist. So to me, it must have higher spiritual energy because he wore it. And so I'm going to put this on the altar. And my father was an upholsterer. He, for many years, was able to do, he was able to make furniture, right? And really did some really high-end work. This is one of his upholstery hammers that he used for many years. You can see I haven't even cleaned it. It has his energy in it. It's part of his journey. I used to see him use this since I was a child, this particular hammer. I'm going to put this on his altar as well. Anika even included a small piece of papyrus here. This is a good place for you to write a message to your ancestor as you continue to remember their divine soul. This is one of the ways that you can ensure that you are giving offerings to Now, sometimes you might include, as I said, some fruit or something here. The plant is the life on this altar, but clearly you could also include something for the ancestor to eat. Include the foods that they loved. I'm actually going to put a little bit of incense, burnt offerings. Oops. Burnt offerings to the divine soul of my father, Winfred Levy Jacobs. And when you're doing your prayer, you might as well go ahead and light a candle. Light a candle so that it reminds you of the process that you are undergoing. Many people who have ancestor altars, this is something that has that's become much more popular in the world of those who work altars. Sometimes they have ancestor money. In this instance, I simply went to the internet, got images of notes from Ghana. Ghana is a place that's very important to me, that my father was very interested in, that we actually had a very important relationship with. I'm going to use this as ancestor money, money that I can burn to make offering to the soul of my father, Winfred Levy Jacobs. Whoop, that's burning very fast.
Like, don't burn it.
Whoop, that burned fast. By the way, if you're going to burn like this, what you might want to do is actually have a way that you can ensure that you're able to hold and control those items that are on fire. I also have, and I did not take it out, I have a beautiful pair of tongs that we use. It's a really good way to ensure that you will never be in a situation where a flame is a problem. And so, ooh, look at that. It's falling onto the sage and burning the sage. This would be a really good time for you to pray to the divine soul.
Like you might more.
Yeah, I am. And I burned this for my father, Winfred Levy Jacobs. I give you offering. You are remembered. You are missed. I know that you have sought to communicate to me so many times because, as your eldest son, I know that I am one of those individuals that you would continue to have interaction, communication with. I hear you, Father. I know that you are here. I know that you did not die. I know that your divine soul is that which can never be destroyed. I give you offering. And I want to say that I will attempt to complete your unfinished works. I want to say that you, Winfred Levy Jacobs, will never be forgotten. That I will continue to give offerings to your divine soul so that you may be an everlasting ancestor.
It's starting up again.
I see it. I'm looking at it. It's right here. It's Anika is very nervous. And now I'm going to speak the prayer. The ek, hu en pet, us em ta, makeru em neterkert, het en jejedu, jejedu, em ba ankh. Hen, it's not even TT, it's 10 TT.
No, hen TT.
Hen TT. Abtu em benu. Akper an senartu.
Nen senart.
Yes, nen, right? Not on. Nen senartu. Without, no. Nen senartu. Her seba. Nebu et enduat. Au. Jatu. D2. Well, it's, well, yeah. G2 and na tau m. Pacheb. Hetepu m iunu. Se. Men m sektet Aari, Per Betty, F, and Ka and Asar on Winfred Levy Jacobs. And so you can read this prayer as you pay homage to the divine soul of your ancestor. It is important for us to do as our ancestors did. It is important for us to recognize that the concept of the divine soul is something that our African ancestors brought into the world. That before this concept was in the world, there was no one else. Africans did this when at the time when virtually everyone else was in their infancy. And so I want to say to you that you should do as your ancestors did. This is a critically important concept. Do as your ancestors did. And so I'm going to say to you that I am here paying homage to the divine soul of my father who made his transition on May 30th of 2020. And he's definitely missed. He's absolutely missed. You should do the same. If you want to continue to have communication with your ancestors, you should also erect your ancestral altar, tend your ancestral altar. By the way, if you just have a table with some nice things on it, that's not an altar. That's a table with some nice things on it. An altar is something that you keep. An altar is not an item in many ways, it is a process. And if you work your altar, it will alter your condition. I must say to you, family, that these are the practices of our ancestors, and they are practices which we should keep ourselves. This is of critical importance. This is one of those practices that we see in most ancient Africa, and we should see in our communities here in the hood, here in the West once more. There's a fundamental principle that you'll hear me constantly say. We are told, we are admonished that we should continue to give offerings to our ancestors. I'm going to say to you that the most important concept here is that which you feed is that which lives. You should probably leave that alone. That which you feed is that which lives. And so I would say to you that you should continue to pay offerings to your ancestors. You should continue to pay offerings to your ancestors. Why should you just simply be absolutely wrapped in sorrow and in horror because of the transition of someone? You should know that they are still with you. But if you do not continue to provide offerings, why should you believe that they will continue to interact with you? This is important. If something is showing up in your life that you think ought not show up, perhaps that's because you're not feeding the right things and starving the wrong things. That which you feed is that which lives. And so I say to the soul of my divine father, the man who was with me at every step of the way, the person that continued to attempt to play an important role in my life all throughout every stage of my life, I want to say that I recognize that you're still here, that you're still in communication with me. So with that, let me say the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Get up in your altar today, family. Get up in your altar today. It is of critical importance that we remember our ancestors, that we continue to interact with our ancestors. If you do this, you are doing that which those great Africans who did such great work will remember and be fond of. I truly believe that if you are going to be a practitioner, you should do these things. Amika, can you please come forward for our final affirmation?
Sure. sure y'all know I was afraid it would burn down our house, right?
That wasn't going to happen. That was not going to happen.
Oh, well, it's good to see all of you, and we're so happy that you were able to join us today. I wanted to say much appreciation to all of you who have made donations. A lot of you have been sending in donations, so I want to acknowledge you. So Sinette Tanya, Sinette Tracy, or Fafanta Tracy, Sinette Monique Colbert, Sinette Charity Everett, Sinette Trisha Parchment, Brother Jones, St. Jones, or I think it's a male, I'm not sure, it just says Jones. Sen Curtis, Sinette Minnie, Sinette Demetra, excuse me, and Sen Dion. To all of you for your donations, and all of you who have sent stars on Facebook and donations to our PayPal account. We really appreciate it, and it certainly helps us do all of what we need to do. A reminder, we have our solstice event, which will be next Sunday at 12 noon. It's posted on Facebook. Hopefully we'll see you at the Tech-In. The colors of the day, I believe, would be orange and white that we're going to be wearing. So please come in your splendorous outfits. And also, we're still allowing people to join us on our trip. Please do so quickly because the seats will be closing up soon. So if you're interested in traveling with us to Kemet from August 1st to the 10th, or to Ghana, August 10th to the 19th, or both, please go to our website at www.centerforma'at.com and put in your deposit so we can save your space. Tell your family and your friends. It is a family-friendly trip, so please, if you're interested in traveling with us, do so very quickly so that you don't miss out on your opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to get to meet with us, as well as the yoga master, Yasir Rahotep, who will be traveling with us on that trip as well. So please do that very soon. Ladies, we didn't forget you. Remember, this is an ancestral altar, but you can also transform it into the altar asking for what
altar.
You're looking for, your working altar. And what I tend to do, I love having papyrus, because on the papyrus I can write what I like and what I'm looking for. Now, papyrus does not burn. Real papyrus, anyway.
It doesn't burn. It doesn't burn easily.
Yeah, it takes a very long time. So it's not something.
Trust me, we've been trying to burn this one for a long time. It don't burn easily.
So you can write something on a simple, regular piece of paper if you'd like to burn it,
and that goes up really quickly. Did you see that? That was copy paper. It went up like this. Anika got nervous. It's starting again. It's starting again.
I do not sound like that.
Yes, you do. They've heard you before. They know that's what you sound.
Papyrus does not burn as quickly.
No, it doesn't.
What I prefer to do is use regular paper for burning, but have the papyrus with a note wrapped up in it, and have it on the actual altar, and I can leave it there. So I know when I made an altar to my mother, I wrote a note to her, and I left it there on the altar as opposed to burning it. So it's really your choice what you like to do.
Just to highlight what she's saying, the things that you're trying to receive, maybe you should put on papyrus because it's not going to burn easily. But the things that you're trying to give to the ancestor, or in a certain instance, the things that you're trying to send off to take out of your life, maybe those are things that you'll burn as well. That's really what she's saying. And so that's really important.
So if you are looking for a mate, and this is both for the Sens and the Sinetu and Sinetu on this call, you can put a message to the divine there saying, this is what I would like, this is how I would like this person to come into my life, and you can burn that and have those ashes and the flames go up to the divine. You can also write a note of all you are looking for, wrap it up, leave it on the altar, put it in front of Ma'at if you like. You can even put it on the scales. You can put it in front of her. I mean, it's all up to you what you are trying to invoke. This is your personal altar. This is your personal space. So there's no one way of doing it. So feel free to do it any way that you choose. Make sure you give your verbal offerings as well as your physical offerings. We have our water from the Hapi Valley that we bring back from us every year, and we pour that into our plant.
That would be here. Yes.
And then we also have our charcoal that we can burn here, along with frankincense and myrrh, or any of your other stones that you'd like to use in order to bring honor to your ancestors, and to also bring life to the actual altar space. Okay.
So let's go.
All right. So I would like to conclude with our final affirmation. And I will do it in the ancient language of our ancestors, Unter, as well as in English. So we ask that you stand in the pose of adoration as you did earlier in the opening of the way. So please repeat after me. Rupu Nuku, Amiku, Kemam, Keperu, and Unter, Hayu. I am that I am. A shining being. Dwelling in the light. Of the Most High. Twa Winter. Thank you to Divine, and thank you to all of you.
Family, get up and do some work. Okay, get into your altar. I just have to reiterate that what we're talking about is being a practitioner. A practitioner practices. So we're hoping that you're going to actually do these things as well. We'll see you soon. Shemir Ma'at, go forth in divine balance. See you soon. Peace.